Thank you guys to be here today, and thank you everyone. I would like start asking to you a little bit introduction, who you are, which company you're working for.
So our core business focus in the hospitality sector. We did 4 and 5 and 6-star categories hotel. Also we did residential building, private offices and private firms.
Thanks a lot. Clients are private or also institutional client?
We have both clients. We work now with some of PIF entity. Also we work with private clients. So, but our focusing more with the PIF entity now.
Okay. Thank you a lot, Rosa. Mohammed?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Maghalani. I'm the Chief Franchise Asset Operations for Dan Company. Dan Company is one of PIF project. We specialize in creating agri-tourism experiences and adventure and ecotourism. So we are converting and enabling farm owners to convert their farms into agri-tourism. The project is very exciting, and I hope one day when we launch the first farm to see all of you over there. Thank you.
Shahzad?
Hi, Federico. How are you? Good to be on the stage with you again.
Anytime.
Thank you. My name is Shahzad Azam. I'm the owner and founder of a company called IDA International. Our headquarters are based in Bahrain. We're a hospitality design company. We have offices globally. We predominantly are focused on delivering hospitality projects throughout the region. Very blessed to be working in this part of the world. It's quite an amazing journey in the last 10, 15 years of where we started from in a small town of Bahrain, and you know, we have this global footprint of what we do today. And I think a lot of that is thanks to the region and what we've done here. Recently, you know, we were shortlisted for the CID Awards, and I was really pleasantly surprised that we had 14 nominations, and I was like shocked, you know, because if you think really, you know, about how the Middle East works, and me and Federico were talking about it earlier, that there's a traffic between Dubai and Riyadh, you know, this is the traffic that you have going on. And the little Bahrain, you know, a company is receiving 14 nominations at the awards, you know, which is incredible. Okay. And all I can say is thanks, you know, for the opportunity in the Middle East to work. What is IDA? So IDA is a multidisciplinary design company. We like to think ourselves not just as designers, but problem solvers. In the Middle East right now, the thing is not to go and design projects and have these beautiful projects on your walls, but also to deliver those projects. And that's what we're here to do. And thank you for having us. You know.
Anytime. Karim?
Thank you, Federico. My name is Kerem Cengiz. I'm the Managing Director of LWK and Partners for the Middle East region. We have been operating across the Middle East now since 2018 and have been a locally registered company here in Saudi Arabia since 2020. The business is a multidisciplinary design practice, focusing exclusively in design rather than engineering. We're very fortunate to be working with a number of PIF entities here in Saudi Arabia. We have good relationships with our friends at Dan and enjoying that journey with them, which is really quite remarkable and I think very apposite to today's conversation. As a business, we were established 40 years ago in Hong Kong. We have 12 international studios, 2 of which are now in the Middle East, which is a real blessing. And it's becoming a region that we see as a big hope for the future. Real levels of stability in terms of geopolitics, which makes this a great area for investment and for growth, which is absolutely being driven by what's happening in Saudi Arabia. As a practice, we participate and win numerous awards. We're within the top 30 architectural practices in the world. And the story goes on, but I'll...
So this Middle East and Saudi Arabia is the place to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, we've all been waiting for Saudi Arabia to blossom, and what we've seen in the last 10 years is remarkable. And it's, I think, the real driver for the rest of the region. When Saudi is successful, I think the Middle East is successful. So it's wonderful to see this happening, and we certainly welcome it.
Thanks a lot. Rosa, how you think that Saudi Arabia receive this growth of hospitality in the kingdom?
When we talk about the hospitality and tourism sector in Saudi, it has a significant growth since the introduction of the vision, and in 2022 we were the faster growth country in the G20, and the last year we were the second faster growth country in the G20s. So of course this is support the hospitality. We start seeing multiple hotels number 20 to 21 opened last year, and we start seeing international brand names in Saudi now, and all those achievements it show the commitment of our leaderships as visioned by His Royal Highness and Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So yeah, I think the vision is aligned with what we are seeing now. And also, if you see the 5 giga projects starting from Neom, Roshan, Diriyah, Ritsi, and Giddiya, it's a great example of our achievements. And also in social media, you can see now all the pictures when the vision started, how the project looks like, and how it looks now after 14% of the planned timeline. So yeah, I think we are in line with the planned timeline if we're not 20% above that.
Do you think that the vision will be completed or will we help to change in general?
Actually, our leadership, he put the plan and we all work on it now. I think it's fantastic plan, and we start to see the achievement in the project. Also, as I told you, the project starts showing more than the percentage we planned for. So I think the plan is successful, and also we in Saudi we always have more plans. We're not stopping in one time. We always have a second plan and third plan.
Thanks a lot. Mohammed, you're an expert in the hospitality in Saudi Arabia. Your role in Dan, and Dan is very nice concept, a nice project. In general, how you see in few years from, except probably the Holy City, for few hotels, even in Riyadh, some hotel in Jeddah, but in the secondary city, not so many hotels. How you see this reaction, how the market reacted from few hotels to hundreds of thousands of hotels coming out?
So, I was born in Jeddah and I moved to Riyadh in 1997. So anyone from the expat community who were there in Riyadh or witnessed Riyadh at that time? I don't think so, right? Maybe? Yeah? Okay, so you've seen the evolution, right? So I remember moving to Riyadh in 1997, and then 2000 they announced I think Al Faisaliya Tower, right? So it was like, wow, the tallest tower in the whole kingdom, right? And then I think after a couple of months or after a year, Kingdom came. And then Riyadh became a famous city for business hotels, right? So most of the customers who come to Riyadh, they know that Riyadh is well known for business, and they are staying in a business hotel. So they are providing almost one sort of segment, which is a business segment. We had Intercontinental, we had Faisaliya, we had Four Seasons, and then 2011, the iconic Sheraton Riyadh came to Riyadh. So in Saudi Arabia, we used to have either resorts, which basically in Khobar or Jeddah, or you have business hotels, which is in Riyadh. Right now, the amount of international brands that entered to the market and the offering to the whole market is serving all type of segments that you can see. So you have Diriyah, the hotels that are going to come in Diriyah in Riyadh. It's for leisure, right? It's a boutique hotels. It's provide experiences, right? And then you're going to have Kaft, and the hotels over there, they are going to serve the business segment, right? And then you have the lifestyle hotels, right? Before in Saudi Arabia, no one believed that lifestyle hotels can work in the country, right? But I believe with the new generations, with the millennials, the people, the trends that are changing in the market, you know, having people caring much about the experience rather than a luxury hotel, and the redefinition of luxury for the people. Before people, you know, they define luxury by having a nice building, a nice product. Nowadays, the luxury is different, right? The luxury is, you see how rich experience that you are experiencing in that specific location. So with the sort of different segments that are targeting or coming into Saudi Arabia, the kingdom is developing and attracting international brand and developing local brands to meet those segments. So if you are coming to see adventures, you will have hotels that are specialized in adventures. If you are coming to see leisure, you will come and you'll find all kinds of resorts. You are coming for business, you will find the perfect hotels for business. So the variety of hotels that are coming to the kingdom, it's really amazing. And I believe in the next 5 years, the whole map of distributions of hotels offering in the kingdom will be different.
Including secondary cities, not only major cities, including secondary cities?
Absolutely. Tier 2 cities, Al-Ahsa, you're talking about Tabuk, you're talking about Al-Qasim, you're talking about Hayel. All these with the support that TDF are offering in terms of facilitating loans to all Tier 2 cities and with attracting parameters in their offering. I believe you will see in 5 years many hotels, international hotels activating in those Tier 2 cities.
Yeah, because, thanks for that, because I believe especially in Tier 2, Tier 3 city, rarely in the last years we saw new hospitality development. It was some hospitality action was more to refurbish sometimes some hotel there. So there are many programs under PIF that help to redevelop or to change the urban plan, the urban footprint, and also the hospitality product in the city. But also your company, is involved mostly in secondary cities, no?
Absolutely. So a company which provide authentic agricultural experiences. We didn't have that much before. Like we had a couple of individuals who are developing their farms into a farm stay. But for PIF to invest in a company to create a local brand that can compete internationally in agri-tourism, so just imagine that you go to one of the cities and you don't stay in a hotel, you stay in a farm with international standard, and you have experience like farm to table. This is something new, and I'm sure that it will have its footprint in the future.
I think PIF and the vision helps, we were discussing before, to not say improve, but to change also the lifestyle, and that will benefit for all the Saudi Arabia in general. Thanks a lot. Shahzad, you are a designer, your firm started to be heavily involved in a project in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a very historical place. How you manage to combine the balance between sometimes the local architectural and sometimes the new trends, the new architecture, because our clients don't want only hotels based on local architectural style, but also want to combine between local and future and innovative design. How you balance when you have with your clients in Saudi Arabia?
Very tricky to do. Look, we're blessed enough to work across the region. As Mohammed said, from the north to south, we work everywhere across Saudi Arabia. I was just with a friend yesterday, actually last night, from PIF, and we were talking about. Mostly we were crying in our sorrows, like we do as friends. Okay, but then we got talking about work, and he said, look, the remit of any PIF company is not to go back and recreate traditional Saudi Arabia. That's not the remit that we have as PIF. The remit they have is to reinvent that traditional elements and then bring them to the future, right? And we recently took part in a project where one of our younger designers in the office came to the table and she said, look, I don't want to be lectured on history. I don't want to be told how to design a project historically, Najdi or Hijazi, or whatever the thing is, because I can go to Wikipedia, I can Google it for myself and read up on the history, okay? I want you to pass the heritage on to me, but in a way I understand it, right? My 7-year-old has 3 iPads, okay? And she complains that one runs out, she goes to the next one. She's 7 years old, okay? So I feel like that we're all really blessed to be working in this region, and we're all very successful, but we need to tell the story of Saudi Arabia's past in a way that the new generation will understand and appreciate, right? So when you recreate any historical reference and everything else, it needs to be done in a modern interpretation, okay? So at IDA, all our projects are narrative driven, and we often go to clients and when we discuss, the boring subject about fees, we said the way we approach the project, whether it's 10K or 10 million, it's the same way. It is a narrative driven design, based around a narrative, around a story. And when you tell that story, it has to be based on the context of the location of that, whether it's a hotel, it's an architectural project, or whatever it is that you tell. The balance of that project has to tell a story. That has to come out. Now, we have, I don't know, I think Lean can tell me, but maybe over 25 live hotel projects right now. It is so difficult to keep regurgitating, nudge the design and tell it again and again and again, right? So really one of the things that we like to do is not just marry historical references and the history, but also the experience, okay? So a really good design will not just go back to the history of that area and the context of that area. It will balance what the guest needs are, what the operator needs are, and what the client's needs are. They're really, really important. And I think that's one of the few things a lot of people forget. Like you'll get some companies which are really boutique driven. The project is all about design, okay? And I've been to some of those hotels or some of those restaurants. It's not comfortable to sit in. The chair is too heavy to move, right? We were working with the royal family in Bahrain, and we designed the dining chair. When the dining chair came in, for the Crown Prince, it weighed 56 kilos. It took 2 people to move it back. And it hit me suddenly that, why do we design like this? There was like 3 layers of plywood underneath to make it stronger, It just didn't make sense, right? The chair looked really grand, royal crest was on there and everything else. And I looked at it and I apologized to the representative, and I said, give me 2 days, let me go away. And we completely stripped it down, and I think we made it much lighter so it could be moved. It's just practicalities like that. The piece has to work. And that's the most important thing about your design. It can be rooted in deep cultural elements, but it has to work. It has to deliver, it has to work. The requirement in a secondary or a tertiary city is completely different what the requirement in Riyadh will be. So that has to be there in the concept from day one. If not, you can deliver a product that's not right for the environment.
Thanks a lot. Karim, you want to add anything on that? Your experience in...
Look, I mean, we as I said, we're working with Dan in the regions and others in the regions that are quite disparate. I mean, Saudi Arabia, as we were all discovering, I think a lot of us didn't realize how culturally diverse the kingdom was, and also geographically diverse. So I think when we look at heritage and culture, we don't always have to perceive it as being pegged purely to historical periods. It's about how people live their lives. And I think that whilst I completely agree with the context of creating a narrative around a place, I think understanding the context in which you design is absolutely critical. Whether the elements are historical, traditional or not, I think is really predicated on the basis of what you're designing. And sometimes a more historical approach is absolutely appropriate to place, whether it be a contemporary interpretation or even a traditional manifestation as we're perceiving at Diriyah Gate. I think it's all about appropriateness and obviously the functionality around that. There's a lot of thought that's going out there. Diriyah themselves have a very deep understanding of what it is to create Najdi architecture in the context of the place, but also a very deep understanding that some of the elements that they're delivering at Diriyah require modern context. So if you're designing a museum, traditional Najdi architecture doesn't necessarily lend itself structurally to large span buildings. So there are grades of analysis, and I think that can be very exciting as a designer to be set a series of constraints that are actually very limiting. But finding a solution to that in the context of that place is part of the design process that we have to go through. So I think both alternatives are relevant.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I believe it because usually the hospitality in the region, we tend to speak often about Dubai. When Dubai started years ago and developed the hospitality, because the local culture, the local style is different. What started Dubai at that time and what Saudi Arabia can offer, the history, the past in general. So for you, architect, sometimes it's been asked to this balance in the design. No?
Look, I think it's a very difficult comparison to make, and I think it's not necessarily an appropriate comparison to make. I mean, Dubai is Dubai, yeah, Saudi is Saudi.
That's what I'm saying. It's two different.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, no disrespect to Dubai. You know, one of our studios is in Dubai, and we're doing a lot of work that's very specifically geared around what Dubai represents and what it's created for itself. But Saudi Arabia has a heritage that's 2,000 years old,
and more, maybe,
and possibly more. And I think that's something that we're all discovering. Well, I'm sure it was already known by those who are living in the kingdom and born in the kingdom. But I think the comparison of hospitality in Dubai to hospitality in Saudi Arabia is sort of diametrically opposed. There are different functionalities. The work that we're doing with entities such as Dan is very focused at an internalized market. Dubai is very much focused at attracting tourists in that are more internationally focused. So I think the comparators are quite different, and I think you know, when we work here, we don't look at Dubai or other places. We look at the kingdom. What does the kingdom need? What are the demographics of the people who are going to visit the resort or the hotel destination that they're selecting? You know, and so if you compare the different entities that are working in hospitality, their DNA is fundamentally different. What's going on at Amala, at Red Sea is completely different than what's going on at Dan. And you know, obviously, I don't need to talk about that. That's something that this gentleman can talk about in great detail. But the diversity that is being offered in the kingdom is so radically detached from what's happening in Dubai. It's infinitely more interesting, to be honest. You know, that you can be approached by 3 different hospitality entities, and each one demands something uniquely different. And that, as a designer, is a massive treat. I mean, how often do we get to do that? It's sort of once in a generational experience.
Thanks a lot. Rosa, one question. Your design is a traditional design, is a contemporary design? How you design your project? What drives your design?
So we can design a modern and traditional design at the same time. Designers can do more than 3 to 4 styles, but the main and important point is to be, you know, focus on the culture. And one of the strong points I can see in my company that I'm trying to hire Saudi talented designer, because in the end of the day, understanding the culture, and as someone who live and born here, I can see elements that other people cannot see it, because you know, it's different when you see it, when you live with it. And you know, Saudi have a very rich culture. In our regions, it's different. I will take one of our ongoing project as an example. One we did it in Al Hassa, and other one we did it in Abha. It's the same project, it's the name of the company, but it's totally different if you see it, because it's related to the region itself. So in Abha you will see the weather, it's different. So it's different about the human behavior, the weather, and also the architecture element. It's affect the design, but in a very positive way. So I think this is what makes Saudi special, and to the neighborhood companies, cities. It's because we have a very rich culture, and it's different. Also, it's helped the tourism sector, because you know, we're gonna have more than 1 to 3 options when the visitor comes in.
Thanks a lot. Karim, going back to what we were discussing before, the region itself, do you think there is a risk that the hospitality market getting saturated, or there is too many alliances between projects? There is a risk the project become anonymous to each other, or there is still a lot of space and make up on that?
Look, I mean, as Mohammed was saying earlier on, there is a lot of space for growth within the sector. However, there is also a point at which certain choices need to be made in terms of saturation. You know, if we see a number of entities that are emerging that begin to have a DNA that's not a million miles away from each other, And when you see those developments all clustering around similar locations, at some point, inevitably, some assets are going to suffer at the expense of others, or some of them are going to benefit at the expense of others. And so, you know, we hope to see, and as I think we're beginning to see, a rationalization of how the developments are relating to each other, how they're talking to each other, what the benefits are of perhaps collaborating on initiatives together as opposed to going alone. That also has benefits in terms of how the expertise that sits and resides within entities can be shared and streamlined, rather than continuing to grow entities that have to relearn the lessons of previous entities that maybe have been launched before themselves. I think there is still space in the market, and I think when we look at the internalized market, there is space, but that space will get filled very quickly. I mean, there are certainly in hospitality, there are certain parallels to the retail industry as well. It's, you know, obviously when you're looking at destinations, you want to capture market share. Yes, you have different segments and different points of price, and so if everybody goes for a 5-star, there's going to be a saturation of 5-star. If nobody's going for a 3-star, that's going to be the segment that's going to be open. There is an old adage, first in, best dressed. The one that hits the ground first, captures the imagination, will be the one that succeeds the most. So I think that's going to be something that they've all got to look out for, or look for differentiation in terms of their market share and their market target. So I think that it's something that probably requires a little bit of focus, and I think that focus is coming.
Okay, thanks, Karim. Rosa, at the moment, the guideline, the red dot, the main focus in Saudi Arabia is the vision 2030. How the vision have personally and professionally affected you in your life and professional life?
So, as a Saudi female engineer, I privilege competitors to the growth. So, Saudi have created a fair and a strong society for everyone. If you can see in the 2060, women have the right to start to drive, and we start travel alone, and also we have the legal right. Although it's supported the women in different sectors, not only in my sector, but specifically in my sector, it supported me. I cannot imagine myself being in the hospitality sector before, but after the vision, it's opened our eyes to the new opportunities, and also having a lot of international companies comes in, it's helped us to open more and to explore more. As I told you before, the vision, it's really something great to everyone, and it's fair, by the way, to the women and men at the same time. I think having a lot of Saudi women in each sector, especially in my sector, it's really supported me a lot. Our Saudi designers are really talented, and I can see the element that they become and bring it to the design. It's make the design really different. And something happened, it's really fun story. Sometimes in the design company, you get a project and then you get to design it or whatever. In my case, I get some project that it's already designed by other company, and the client comes to me and tell me, I want the Saudi touch in it. I want to see the Saudi elements in it. They start understanding that, you know, being someone here and see the culture, it's gonna help a lot in that. So, you know, with a local talented and also strong international experience, we can make a great team.
Thanks a lot. One question: do you think that the Saudis is benefiting for all these international firms come to Saudi Arabia? Are the Saudi firm getting the touch of the international experience of the international architect firm that are coming here, and there is collaboration? This collaboration is beneficial for the Saudi firm?
So actually, it's beneficial for both, for the international company and also for Saudi. Again, you know, when you come to the place where all those giga projects in, you need the international experience, but also all the international company need to be explored to Saudi and how it looks now and how we became. So yeah, having a collaboration with international companies, it's help us. And in the end of the day, we all work to make this vision happen, no matter who you are. Just trying to add a value on this vision and to make it happen with our leadership.
Thanks a lot.
If I could just add something to that. I mean, as an international business that's invested in Saudi, I mean, we are a locally registered entity. We're looking to set up our regional headquarters here. Whilst our corporate origins may be from Hong Kong, what we're trying to achieve is to be a local Saudi business, but with an international heritage and pedigree. And so we as an entity, and I believe a lot of other international companies probably share the same vision, is that we want to be a local business. You know, you come in, you invest time, you invest effort, a lot of effort. Why? Well, because you want to be here for the long term, and to be here for the long term is about becoming local. And so it's about, as you said, Rosa said, about collaboration, sharing, gaining knowledge, and then the market becomes developed, and we all benefit in that cross-cultural fertilization, but we all become localized.
Thanks for that. I say that because it's happened a few times, unfortunately, already. First time it's happened a few years ago, where I was attending a conference. I was a local entity here. I was speaking with one of the bigger architect firms in Saudi Arabia. I said, why are not working together? And this local entity in Saudi say, because this even is probably the bigger architect firm in Saudi Arabia, because they don't have international experience. I hope, and I was not ready for that answer personally, so I hope that during the time, this is a gap that will be filled, because it should be a combination, but don't mean that be Saudi and you are not good enough for project. That's what's coming from a client here in Saudi. So I hope that this is coming, this gap is, if there is a gap, is coming to close as soon as possible.
I think there'll always be an element of belief that, particularly in a market that's evolving quite quickly, that an external expertise brings something more than local expertise, and I think that's unfortunate, because ultimately, but it's something that we see everywhere. I mean, I've worked in Southeast Asia, I've worked in Australia, I've worked in the former Russian republics, and as they opened up, it was always that perception that international was better than local, but in time that changes inevitably, and I think it's really important as a business that's coming in and benefiting from the opportunities that are here, that we contribute back to the economy, not just through taxation, but also, I mean, one of my staff is here, put your hand up, he's a local Saudi, he's making a contribution to the business, and that is part of our responsibility, whether it's Saudization or not. I think we as businesses have to contribute more than just monetarily to the growth of the market that we're occupying.
Thanks, Robert. Mohammed, anything to add on this as a client point of view?
So, in general, you know, talents is one of my young talent is one of my favorite subjects. So, in order to add, allow me to add more on what Rosa said and Karim. So, if you allow me, let me talk about how it used to be. Yes. Hospitality perceived for Saudis, and then how is it now? So I graduated from high school in 2000, and I decided to study hospitality. And they told me there is only one hospitality school. It was in southern of Saudi Arabia, in Abha, and they just opened literally in 2000, and we didn't have any other option. So I went there. I studied for a couple of years, and then I decided to go and continue my study in Switzerland. It's the home of hospitality. However, I mean, that one was the only institute over there that provide hospitality businesses. And then they started to open diploma in, I think, in King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. Now, currently speaking, it's hardly to find education institute in Saudi Arabia that does not provide hospitality major. almost all the universities, they have hospitality major, hospitality and tourism. And on top of that, some of the giga projects, such as Qibdiya and such as the Red Sea, they sent a lot of people on sponsorship to study abroad, hospitality and tourism, right? So they can come back and they can fill the gap in the market. And Minister of Tourism, I'm sure all of you or most of you heard about the programs. So Minister of Tourism actually they sent people to study master degree in hospitality. And it's ongoing now, a lot of courses around the globe with the top education institutes to teach or to give you a short courses about hospitality and about tourism. So all this in order to match the demand, to match the supply that is coming to the kingdom in the coming 5 years. So having said that, when I was studying in Switzerland, I saw a lot of people coming from the globe to apply for internship in Switzerland. And Dubai also is one of the most desired destinations for hospitality graduate to apply to do their internship over there. And my dream was to have the kingdom a destination for international students to come and do their internship here in the country. And this has been achieved. So when I was in the Ritz-Carlton, we welcome people from top universities such as Lyon, EHL, to come and do their internship. And actually, when I visited the campus over there, I mean, the demand of the international students who are, very motivated to come and visit the kingdom and work over there and do their internship, it was amazing. Like I didn't imagine it would be that much. So just imagine you have an international experience, and then you have the Saudis who are born and who has in their DNA hospitality, right? So you are merging the authentic hospitality of Saudi people with international standard. So you can imagine what would be the outcome, right?
MashaAllah, you already have hospitality in your DNA anyway as a nation, so it's going to be something super, no?
Thank you very much. So it is essential, especially in the tourism industry, to have a collaboration between the international experiences, right, and the local experiences. Because here we have the hospitality by heart, right? But it should be matching international standard, right? Because we are open, the country is open for everyone, for all nationalities. So in order for us to understand the international protocols, right, we need international people with international extensive experience to come here and complement our hospitality. So together, I'm sure it will be undisputed hospitality offering around the world.
And you see many Saudis now is going abroad and study in Lausanne or whatever hospitality school, or also they are more also leveraging a lot from the experience from the more hotels that are opening here. There is more general manager, more international experience. So where is the balance? Is it?
So if I understand you correct, if you're talking about what's the market is missing,
yeah,
vocational programs. So the country so Minister of Tourism, they send people to study master degree and short courses. I'm not worried about the managerial positions for the hospitality provided, but the majority, if you're talking about the majority of occupations that is needed, it is for more into operations. And this will be filled, I believe, will be filled only by providing vocational training program. A lot of, like for example, in Lyon, in Switzerland, they started to reject application from Saudis because they said the classroom right now contains almost 50% Saudis. And they said, we want them to have international experience. So, it doesn't make sense to come and you see all your colleagues in Switzerland are Saudis, right? But if you study there 5 years and then you're coming back to the market, you don't expect them to work in a very junior position, right? So therefore, in order to fill this gap, the country needs a lot of vocational training programs. And I believe it started to emerge, but we need a lot of vocational training programs in order to fill the gap in the market.
But there are also, sorry, Shazad.
I have a question from Mohammed or anybody on the panel. I've been lucky enough to be in the region for a while. And you know, one of the most impressive things that I found in the region that you spoke about, you've been here for a while, is that how today Saudi Arabia has identity on the international stage. You know, I mean, I'm a Muslim, a lot of us are Muslims here. So for us, Saudi Arabia has always had identity, okay? But in hospitality, you have identity now. But that is something that's been driven by the 2030 vision. Why were previous strategies not successful and this one has been successful? What is the difference? Because you've been part of the change, right? You've seen it with your own eyes. Okay, just a question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Actually, it's a great question. So, if I understand it correct, why the previous offering before Vision 2030?
Like you said, resorts in the 2 further provinces and business hotels were here. But now you have identity in hospitality. You know, like we talked about the regional identities coming up and everything else. What's different this time around? What is the drive? You know, what's the difference?
So, yeah, it's very clear. But see, let's be honest. The tourism was not part of or one of the priorities of any plan or any development for the country. We didn't look at it as a revenue, a big revenue stream. They were focusing, the country were focusing, and all of you know, it's not a secret, they were focusing on the oil, right? We have the oil, so this is our main industry, and tourism is just, we need to have hotels in order to meet the couple of summits that are happening in the kingdom and to meet certain requirements. So I don't believe there was a good plan for the hotel distribution in the last 20 years. Someone wants to build a hotel, he sees a gap, he will build a hotel without paying attention to the identity of it. But what happened now with Saudi Vision 2030, they have a plan and they know where the country would reach, and they know they have a number of a target number of tourists to attract, right? And in order to achieve this, you need to look at the audience, right? You need to look at the millennials, you need to look at the adventurers, you need to look for the people who are coming for business, you need to meet the need of the people who are coming to see the country, right? So therefore, there is a clear plan for Ministry of Tourism for the distributions and the type of hotels that they are attracting. So now if you go to TDF and you tell them, listen, I want to open a 5-star hotel. And I have a big company and I would like to have a sort of fund. No matter how strong your company is, if it doesn't meet the plan that the country has, the criteria, they will not support you in this development. So, and if you go to TDF and you tell them, I want to invest in tourism industry, I want to enter to the market, they will be very happy to show you a plan and tell you where are the gaps. So they will tell you, in these tier 2 cities, we need these sort of hotels, and they can provide you, they can even introduce you to international brands that will meet the criteria and will fill the gap which are missing in the kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing, just last week I was in the UK, and I was sitting next to an old family friend, he's a doctor, and he was talking about the line, okay, but in not a complimentary way, you know, how it was so big and how it's so small. And I said, you know, I was talking to someone about the line, and I've got a lot of friends who work out there and everything else. And he said, do you know there isn't enough silica in the world to have the glass to build the line? So clearly it was a vision that was not deliverable, okay? And the vision is very clear. You can go plus and minus according to the needs you have, right? And one of the things that really impresses me, right? I struggle to run a company that we've set up and what we are doing, is that the level of thinking and sophistication that's in place this time around is incredible. Like you said, TDF, the criteria, it's the level of thinking they put together is just incredible. I watched an interview where one of the ministers was talking about the reliance of Saudi Arabia on some of these PwC, KPMG, McKinsey, you know the same interview, right? And he said, it will probably take us 100 years to learn the lessons that those companies are teaching us. But right now, we are beholden to those companies because they bring those systems. In a way, you asked earlier about the international designers, right? So I think it takes time for a nation to learn and evolve, right? But what we are witnessing now is just incredible because the timeline this is happening, I don't think we've ever seen this kind of growth. It's literally like hang on for the ride. That's what you've got to do. So I think it's incredible what's happening right now. Really incredible.
Thank you, Mohammed. Keep the microphone, Shazad. We were speaking about design, and do you see any conflict of any issue or between what their design concept and what's their traditional way to deliver the project here in Saudi?
Yeah. So look, it's a very interesting subject. Procurement, what you really like to talk about. It's interesting, right? Again, my good friend Federico told me a while back, that ID has reached a position where business is almost automatic. All the brands know us. They come to us. They have a project. They know that the ID can do it. We'll get the project. It is about how you maintain that business, and you'll have growth upon year, right? And really, you have to decide: do you really want to go for it? Do you want to press the turbo button and bring people in that can help accelerate your business and everything else, right? So when we go in for projects and we talk to clients now, we don't really sell ourselves anymore. Really, we don't sell ourselves anymore. We go in with a mindset that I'm here to help you and enable you to deliver your vision or your dream, okay? And the only way I can do that is if I sit on your side of the table and look at everything that you've got. The first thing, the old adage where clients should say, I want the best, okay? If my client says, I want the best, I said, well, how deep are your pockets? Because that's not true anymore. It doesn't happen like that, okay? So one of the things that we do is that the first thing we talk about at the very beginning of the project, before we even sign it actually, is we talk about deliverability about the project, okay? It's interesting, when we started working with Red Sea, they reached out to us, and I was speaking to one of the guys there, and I said, I don't want to work with you guys. I said it's really challenging, and I'll have to fund the project and everything else. I'll work with you if our visions are aligned. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I want to deliver the project in a way that it's right, it's deliverable, right? I don't want to just make this amazing CGI and then you water it down into something that just looks completely different, right? So imagine they drove on a Friday to Bahrain to speak to us because they really wanted to work with us. The whole meeting was not about ideas experience. It's like, how do we deliver this project? So we sat down and we opened up some of our presentations. And one of the things that we do about deliverability, right, of projects is that at concept stage, we will give a costing around the room. So if we're talking about hotels, we will give the costing around that room or the mock-up room at concept stage. Because if I can deliver a budget for a mock-up room, 70% of my project is now secure. Yeah, that means I have 30% of the project, which is all the public areas, to have fun. And literally every client will tell you, I don't mind you spending a little bit more in the public area, the restaurant, the rival lobby and everything else. But if I can fix the budget on the hotel room, it's fantastic. Yeah. I cannot tell you now in the last 2 to 3 years, how every single conversation with the client, it goes from, here's your CGI of the project. And he says, fantastic. Shazad, where can I buy this from? Every client asks you this because one of the problems you have in Saudi Arabia is that we don't have the procurement industry to support those projects, okay? And it's often, I find it quite strange, is because if you work in Dubai, Dubai has a very mature, industry that can deliver projects, okay? Even Bahrain has a more mature industry in terms of deliverability and quality of output of work. It's just the way the countries evolve over the years slowly. Saudi Arabia never had the requirement, as Mohammed said. Tourism was never a focus, okay? So they never had that. So, I mean, you work in the same industry, right? And we just spoke about that a bit earlier on, right? Is you need to go to clients very early on and benchmark your project in terms of what you're trying to achieve. Okay, what is it that you're trying to look for in this project? What's your ROI that you're looking per key? You know, what is it you want to do? What is your charge out rate? Okay, because not only do we have to make sure the project's relevant for the client, but we also make sure that the project is relevant for the operator. Okay, so I don't, let's say Marriott, right? We're doing a lot of projects in Marriott. If I don't make sure that that project has the design, you know, pillars of that brand, they have a project literally 1 kilometer away. You know, like a Marriott Courtyard and 4 Points by Sheraton, they're actually identical in sizes and everything else. So it's my job to make sure that that design is delivered in a way that I come and I say, I'm staying in a Courtyard, or I'm staying in 4 Points by Sheraton, because the room size is 28 square meters on both. Okay, I have a size now, I have a project now, but the client wants a 32 square meter room. Okay, and Marriott is arguing with him and saying, why do you want to spend more money for that 4 square meters? Because at 32 square meters, you're now going into a premium product range, right? So it's our job to educate the client and say, don't get personal with the project. You know, this is your project, control the budget and move forward from there. And honestly, I think more designers need to think like that, okay? Because if you keep thinking about design only in isolation, you're going to get to a point where you're not going to be able to deliver the project. And that's a real shame to have. There are all these beautiful projects. We have to think about, does Saudi Arabia have the infrastructure and the setup to deliver this project? So I was in India, right? I did a visit about 6-7 years ago. And every hotel I went to, the stainless steel was awful. Okay? Like the lift surrounds and stainless steel did not look good. And I thought, I mean, look at this beautiful intricate work over here on the wall, and the stainless steel looks awful. So I asked my friend, you know, who's in the hospitality industry, and I said, why is that? And he says, we don't have a stainless steel industry. So any project you see is good because the procurement was done in China, is okay. But everybody else who doesn't have the access to procurement in China, they just do it locally. And the guy comes and beats you with a hammer and just puts it up, you know, with rivets. Do you know, when you invest in a project in Saudi Arabia, you don't have a metal industry in the Middle East. So if I ask for a PVD coated piece of brass, the bathtub is about 1.5 meters. I can't get a piece of brass coated longer than that. But I went to China, thousands of companies can do it at much lower cost. So we have a responsibility that when we design our projects, we have to remember that if I put a big brass screen in here on the project, I can't deliver that in Saudi Arabia. The only way they're going to deliver it is by painting it, you know, with some spray paint. So your design does not look the same. You see the level of thinking you have to go down to at design stage. You have to marry your design to the procurement strategy and also the client themselves, right? Yeah, sorry, Dan, you're the only client here, so we keep talking about, you know, sorry, about your company. But it's really important to also understand the client's setup. You know, if you're a big company, you have a sophisticated procurement network, you can do it. Some of my clients, they don't have the ability to go to China and buy the product. Okay, or some of my projects which are run by ultimately by royal funds and royalty, they will not be able to go to China and see the mock-up room. They won't be able to fly out, right? Then we got to figure out, well, we got to get everything over here with the crazy programs that we get given. You know, I was in the panel. One of the things that one of the designers said is, all I ask is for everybody in Saudi Arabia who works in these projects, just give us time. Okay, so that's another problem that you got, you know, with the time and everything else that we put into it. So the challenge really is to marry procurement to design very early on and marry that vision together.
Karim, Shahzad entered in some point of his interview about the knowledge and the experience of the local market. Do you see any enough knowledge and enough in the local market for all these projects that are coming out?
Look, I think it goes back to an earlier point I said in terms of rationalisation, but it also marries up quite nicely what Mohammed was saying about earlier on about training, and that's happening. And I think his point was very apposite. It's, you know, we don't want an industry that's very stratified. You know, you may have a whole generation of people who want to be managers and GMs, but you know, you've got to look after the operational aspects of the business. I think one of the things that we perhaps perceive is that there does need to be we're having a lot of local assets being generated, and it would be, from our perspective as designers, fine. We're working with a lot of international operator brands, but it would be, if we want the industry here to really flourish and it become a self-sustaining industry, the local brands need to be, not franchised out to Marriott's or Hilton's or whoever it is that they're going out to, and that may be the way we need to start at the beginning. But the long-term ambition would be to have local brands owned and operated by local brands. And so having those operational guidelines in place for local brands is something that we'd love to see, and how that then distributes across the local network would be really, really interesting to see that develop. And I think that would support what you're saying. Maybe there will be a hospitality institute in Saudi, and you don't have to go to Switzerland. People from Switzerland will start coming here.
I believe there are already many projects, some hospitality school or the initiative that try to. Red Sea is one of the first one, probably the most advanced project.
Yes.
They have internal school for hospitality and internal stakeholder who are educating the new generation of hospitality hotelier.
I think, look, I think that education side is interesting. I'm more talking about operational guidelines. In the end, as a designer, the operator has a massive influence on how the design evolves. Okay, that operator may not hang on to that asset for more than 12, 15 years, and then another operator comes in, and every time another operator comes in, it dilutes the original vision of the project. And so I think what I'm advocating is having a set of operational guidelines that are owned and centralized and relevant to the operators and the developers in Saudi Arabia that can compete with the international brands. That would be my hope and expectation.
So do you believe especially the big brands, big hotel operators, do you believe they will be willing to change their standard and their procedure to the local to adapt to the local market sometimes?
Can I just put in?
Yeah, please interrupt.
Okay. So one of the things operators are doing is that, and what we're seeing a rise in this. So because Saudi Arabia has a very diverse history and background, and is demanding its projects and its entities to deliver more diverse range of projects. Okay. The operators are reacting to that, okay? So, for example, every single operator now has a boutique arm, okay, under a collection property. So, if you as a client come along, so say Dan Group came along and they want to do a farmstead hotel, okay, but they don't have the experience running that hotel, so they want to go to Marriott, for example. Sorry, we talk about Marriott. I can talk about other brands as well. They want to go to Marriott and they want to say, I want you guys to run it, but we will design it but we want this to be like a traditional experience, like a Saudi experience. So Marriott has now come up and say, okay, we'll put this under an autograph collection label. We'll run the property, will be completely unique. Each autograph collection narrative is rewritten for every single location by a branding agency. So that's how every single operator is changing the way they work. So for example, one of the other things they're doing right now is adapting, yes, because they need to adapt, because there's no way a farmstead would fit into many operators' standard brands, right? So every brand, I think Hilton has a vignette collection and there's collection properties and everything else, right? Another thing that's I've seen a big rise in, right, and we're lucky enough to be part of this journey, is that it's branded residences. Okay, so this is where developers are coming in and they're taking and they're developing residential projects. Again, they want to give them the clients the experience of really professionally run residential projects. So operators are coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine to advocate international brands all the time, but I'm talking about really advocating the development of their own brands in country. And I think, if we always focus on international brands, we don't actually contribute to the 2030 vision, which is about creating its own sustainable industry, and that also includes supporting brands. So everything that you're saying is completely valid, and I don't disagree with it. But the thrust of, I think, the question that you were asking was about creating a sustainable industry that's Saudi-based, and that's. I think I'll leave my final contribution on that point.
There is already some PIF entities that created their own hotel management companies is going that direction, no? For example.
I believe so. I believe that there is that is occurring. How that gets rolled out across all the different entities, or whether that only stays with one or two entities. I mean, we're working with Boutique Group. They're talking about their own operational guidelines as well. So, but you know, do we reinvent the wheel each time? That's the question.
There is a lot of good local branded products on the market. I mean, I stay in one now. Budler Group is one of the best in the industry, and it's quite astonishing how good the procurement network is. I mean, I love the Narcissus Royal Hotel that's put together, and I've made a point of staying from the 3-star product, 4-star product, 5-star product, all the way through. I'm just weird. I like to learn about hotels, and I literally go around touching walls and everything else. And when you go to an Uber hotel, okay, it feels like a 5-star hotel because every wall panel from the lift, it comes from China. So, you know, he has put together an incredible procurement strategy and design strategy where everything comes from China and it brings it here and it gets installed completely, you know, seamlessly. And if you look in Riyadh, I think he must have hundreds of properties just in Riyadh and all at different levels, right? And I think ultimately that the local industry will learn and it'll keep growing like that. But I think for me, from my knowledge, that's one of the most successful, you know, things I've seen growing in the local region. And it's incredible the growth that you've seen. I mean, if you went to the old Narcissus, which is classical and more decadent design, okay, then you go to the Royal, and actually it's a completely different look and feel. And it's incredible that a local company with local, you know, setup can achieve that. I mean, I'll go as far as saying is it's probably one of the best fitted out hotels I've seen in Saudi Arabia. If you look at the quality of it, you go to the room size, the room layout, everything. I don't think even we can emulate that quality with our people on site and our knowledge of procurement. That's how good it is. So I think there's really extremely good successful examples in the region already. But as we already said before, I think the local market does need to learn and grow and adapt. You know, I think you mentioned also that each product has a life cycle, right? So it might be 2 to 3 different operators. But the first operator might be international operator, second one might be, but the third operator might be a local operator. So I think there is that requirement to learn from that legacy that the international operators bring.
Excellent. We are going to the end. I think the time is ending. Any question from the attendee?
Thank you very much for the such insights, quality of know-how and experience, and how positive you are guys towards such a very important industry, towards achieving some of Saudi's 2030 vision. But I feel that it's a little bit disconnected from reality, where the developers are facing some challenges getting approval of their assets, especially when it comes to the hospitality. So sometimes take years while you are paying for the financing and things, yet you did get approval for that. So I love to see some official within such summit to really add a value on the discussion. But in reality, it's a little bit difficult.
I think, Mr. Ali, we've had this conversation ourselves previously, and I understand that it is particularly challenging. I mean, what we've been talking about today has very much been predicated around government or semi-governmental entities, where the challenges are sometimes a little easier than in the private sector. I think it is important that the industry does recognise that the private sector has a huge contribution to make, and I think streamlining the approvals process around that is part and parcel of the ongoing vision development. You know, we've seen radical changes in Riyadh in terms of approvals, but yes, there still are challenges with our CRC, for example, and other entities. Having strong advocates to make that process perhaps more efficient and more, not necessarily regulated, but more transparent and understandable, will definitely come, and I believe that's coming, particularly with the pace of development that's going on. It has to become more streamlined, otherwise the vision will be struggle to be fulfilled. And you know, 2030, I think, will evolve into something else, and again that will evolve into something else. It is important though that the vision does take into consideration the elements that the private investor has to deliver. They, you know, the governmental entities of course have their own targets, but so does the private sector, and that tends to be around shareholders, which are less forgiving, perhaps, in their own way than some of the entities themselves.
But also I believe, sorry if I can, these all initiative, public initiative, are not to aim to be the main hospitality driver for hospitality, but are aimed to create attraction and create anchor where after that the private sector is follow up so it's a way to motivate the private sector to invest in a certain way, because the future of hospitality in Saudi Arabia will not be based on giga, mega, ultra projects. So, and there are a lot of initiatives, financial, TDF, or other partnership. Ashrafis, for example, is one of them, where they try to give a land available and partner with local. So, I believe probably the legislation need to improve sometimes. Sometimes depends if this hotel is part of a standing alone project or is a part of a bigger master plan. Sometimes, but the private sector will be the key driver in the years for the hospitality, not more the giga project. You need to create an appeal internationally to attract, and that's why I believe there are all these initiatives of WF, but it's towards the initiative that need to be incentivized and stimulated for the private sector.
It's going to be overseeing your neighbors for privacy. You should respect that one within such a private master plan. It's something, it's a frustration, to be honest.
I was passing next by one of your projects in the last days of my meetings here, and I saw that there is another competitor project nearby you, but it's part of the process of changing. You need the time to find the right space and then the right location and to live, I believe, and to work next to each other and to contribute for the future of this country.
I tend to partly agree with you, but I also have an empathy for the private developer. I mean, we work on a lot of governmental entity projects. The approvals process is very well supported. There's a very geared up process, and of course, if you're working with a PIF entity, it certainly helps as a motivating factor for approvals to become, as long as your project is up to scratch, that is. That level of support doesn't exist within the private sector. They're very much on their own. And I think that, we could learn from other international locations where legislative frameworks are created that creates a more level playing field. And I think that isn't something that we should be embarrassed about talking about, because it's about improving the industry for everyone. As you rightly say, the core of future growth of Saudi Arabia will be through private investors such as OSIS. And I think that creating the framework for their success will ultimately be success for Saudi.
But also I believe the private sector should be ready to work at a different level sometimes, because until a few years ago, there is different way to work, and it's the consultant need to adapt to the local need to adapt to the consultant. It's a process, it's a way to, and we are going there. We are going. Like I see a lot of willingness and commitment to this.
Yeah, if you allow me, just to add a small, I can really understand from where you're coming from. You see, with the Vision 2030, a lot of things are changing, right? And even the governance are changes, right? It cannot happen all at once. So giving you an example with Dan Company, since it's agri-tourism, so we have many stakeholders. Talking about Minister of Tourism, Minister of Agriculture, municipality, and so it's not only Minister of Tourism who will give you all the licenses required. And some of the ministries, we've seen how they have evolved and how they have changed to go up with 2030 vision, right? And some of the department in some other ministries, they're still struggling, they're still changing. So therefore it is, even though we are one of PIF project, but we also facing some of the delays because of some of the governance are still not changed. And sometimes you feel, and this is, I mean, This is true, and this is not a secret. Sometimes I see one of the departments in one of the ministries. I mean, the way they are responding, you cannot connect it with Vision 2030. You feel they are totally living in a different world. But what I can say to you from the way that I'm observing the changes that are happening, eventually it will change, but it will take time. So probably your specific matter, maybe still there are some old mentality that are controlling it and trying to not to cope with the change, but eventually it will happen. It might happen in a couple of months, it might happen in a couple of years. But the good thing, I assure you, it will change.
Sector, so you have almost the full support and you are very powerful when it comes to make your project to be executed and delivered. But again, just answering the gentleman question, even I totally agree when it comes to the private sector also, they need to do a lot. We are not a small company, we are managing 40 or 40 plus projects at the same time in a mixed use with more than 2 million built up area, so we are an expert more than 20 years yet. Even we get an approval for Salmani code in many products, so we are an expert when it comes to the requirement, but sometimes some things, you know, it's difficult to get or to accept some feedback from some authority that it's just, you know, push you back, not delivering your projects. You have a financial commitment, you have investors, you need to deliver the project at a certain time. Yet it's a lot of challenges we are facing, and this is not the first summit we're raising our voice. We met TDF, we met RCRC, but still we are facing the same. So there is some disconnection between the reality and what's the government are doing towards the private sectors when it comes to the hospitality or even the other services to provide to the sector. So still it's a concern. Yes, still we have the same hope, and we should wish that to reach that level. Yet at the same time, we are paying the financing costs at the same time.
I feel your pain as an LDC that supports organisations like you and are responsible for attaining those approvals. We're also liable for those financial pains. So, inshallah, this will change sooner rather than later.
Rosa, you want to add something?
Yeah, actually, I would like to thank him for being realistic. When is it come to the challenge in my core business, the challenge always comes to me from the private clients, not from the BIF entities and other clients. And I think the reason behind it, it's sometimes the private not understanding the operation requirement. So having a designer or design management in between, it's better to make the connection between the operation and the client software. And this is the challenge I face it now. Again, you know, having team with experience with most of the operation, like Four Seasons, IHG, and all those brands, it's also help you. All the positive things we were talking about it related to the vision, it's related to the number and the picture we see and everything happen in social media. Actually, I'm trying to be positive as much as I can. Business have a lot of challenge, but you know, as you said, we every day we learn from this challenge.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Samir Mansour, DNA Interiors. Thank you for this inspiring talk. Actually, you touch a lot of very important things. I just want to follow up about the speech about this contact between the local offices and the international offices. But what I want to look at it from the other point of view, not from the culture or heritage understanding, but from being local here, either to be rooted here, like us, like Rosa, also like LOK, who's investor here, or somebody who's attached to the market long time, like IDA, and they understand the market. It's important to understand the sources here, to be next, very close to the market, understand the market, the suppliers, sources, materials. I think the project's owner here, they suffer for a long time for long lead materials, lack of specifications, discontinued materials, and the long procurement process. So it is very important to be here local. And this is an invitation for all suppliers, interior designers, and people, they want to be part of this booming, what happened now in Saudi Arabia, to be here and start from here. So this is very important. And this is connected to the other points that also mentioned by Mr. Shahzad about the delivery of a project, the quality of delivering the project. Being here, you can understand the capability of the market. Let's be frank, now the learning curve is going up, but still not matured. So it's important to understand the capability who is here in the market. For example, if you want to design with too much metal, for example, here the metal suppliers still, they are more, but not like before. Before there's no much, so this is important to deliver something good. The third also point, I want to mention the local brands, as mentioned by Mr. Karim. There's, I just want to mention that we have some very successful brands, but they are mostly working from Mecca and Medina, and we work with them a lot. So these brands are really successful there. Imagine if you want, for example, in Ramadan, you want to feed 300 rooms in the first time. This is really challenging, and this is learned lessons. It has to be given for the other cities. So this is also invitation for this operators to come and start working on the other cities, maybe from new brands they can establish. Now we have some very important examples. Shada Home, now go to Booking and look at their rate, 9.5 or something even higher. Like Makarim, we need to start establish, as you mentioned, this is very important, local operator. Also sometimes there's some international hotels need franchise. So also this is another potential for this side. There's a lot of things happening now. There's a lot of opportunities. Again, you need to be here to understand and to be part of this booming on this vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is another question here.
This is Mutaz Hatemi from Akaria, Saudi real estate company. I may be a client of two of the audience here. And maybe have intention to work with a third party here. My question is, I have like an experience in architectural design and even, of course, partially with the interior, guys there. Where I noticed among the years that the most of what we called it adapting with the Saudi, let's say, needs on the hospitality or designing the hotels. It's just kind of putting more like a fake things or abstract of the things. We're about having something close to the human behavior in architecture when it comes to design the spaces, when it comes to design, the real needs of the Saudi, let's say, culture, beside, even the Arab culture generally, of course. The difference between I used to work in Emirates, I used to work in Qatar, and now here in Saudi Arabia. The difference between, I would say, for example, in what's in UAE there and what's in Saudi Arabia is the majority, the ratio of the native people here. It's not unlike Emirates, the majority with experts, but here it's the majority with Saudis, and they are growing, and they are expanding, and everything is happening here. So what we need, and it's also linked to the same point that Mr. Karim mentioned here about having like a local brand that it's really, simulating the needs of the Saudi family when it comes to the hotel, when it comes to the sizes, when it comes to everything. Beside that, where I would suggest we have that international brands that working for Saudi market. I think the Saudi market now has the power to let's say force them to have their own manuals and codes that it's specifically just putting for the Saudi market. So it will be something great as well. besides generating, of course, the local brands, we have to enhance them. We have to give them the power, the strength, just to make them not just a Saudi brands. It will be international brands. This is the opportunity for them. So hopefully this will be, part of the future for the hospitality in Saudi Arabia. Matching with that point of, the Mecca and Medina market, which is like a separate market, it has its own needs. I used to work recently, like 5 or 6 years ago. I designed the Dakhir city, which is 100 hotels in Mecca. There is a big challenge, of course, when it comes to the circulation of the, people, the visitors, on some time to go to pray or to go to breakfast for the, when they are fasting, all of this stuff. Also, you can have its own manual that it will be learned later and educated later on to the world when it comes to such a type of hospitality, because there is different types in Saudi Arabia, and this is what's good in Saudi Arabia. Actually, you have a variety of environments, you have a variety of experiences, you have a variety of needs as well. So hopefully we can together put that flagship mark to start from there to enhance this industry as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. We obviously have had those conversations together ourselves. I think what you're saying is really very specific. I mean, I won't be giving too much away because we're working with Dan closely, but if you don't mind, just a little bit, their main aim is to service the local market, predominantly local market, and it's really important that it isn't about style, it's about how people use places. So when you're talking about how we accommodate the Saudi family, it's very specific and it's very different from even the Emirati families, that if we have the opportunity to work with them on that level. So I think you raised some very valid points. I think the products are we're very fortunate where we work with these type of projects that we engage with regional experts who are embedded in Saudi Arabia, who are very much part of the peer reviewing process so that the product becomes relevant. How we then challenge the operators to adapt to that and accept that because it slightly differs from their own brand guidelines is very much a question that the developer themselves have to sort of be engaged in, saying, guys, this is our product. Yes, you're the operator, you need to make a profit out of this. However, this is for a very specific demographic. So I think you raised some very valid points. Thank you. And Mecca and Medina, yeah, as you say, very unique, massive challenges for hospitality and people flow, and really requires very close examination. So when we're looking at projects like Royal Medina, Royal Haram, and other projects that are going up there, that really needs very close examination. It's not just pure hospitality projects. It's about mass movements of people and how you service them.
Thank you. Thank you for the panelists, and thank you to you guys.